Welcome back to navydoc. Speed. It is the most addictive drug in aviation history. From the moment we shattered the sound barrier, humanity has never looked back. Today, strap in as we count down the fastest gods in history. These are the machines that turned the impossible into reality. The legend begins with the Bell X-1, a winged rocket design built to conquer the unthinkable, the sound barrier. It was a leap of faith into the aerodynamic unknown. In the 1940s, scientists called Mach 1 the demon wall. They believed air at that speed would become as hard as concrete, shredding any wing that dared to touch it. To break through, Bell engineers modeled the fuselage after the most stable object known at the time, a Browning .50 caliber machine gun bullet. October 14, 1947. Colonel Chuck Yeager ignited the engines, pushing the X-1 past Mach 1. But few know that this hero climbed into the cockpit with 2 broken ribs from a horse riding accident the night before. He was in such agony he couldn't close the hatch by hand, forced to use a sawed-off broomstick to pry the lever shut. The aircraft, christened Glamorous Glennis after his wife, was drop-launched from the belly of a B-29 Superfortress. When the X-1's Mach meter hit 1.06, tracking data at Muroc Base confirmed the sound barrier had been subdued. On the ground, a signature double thud echoed after seconds of silence, marking the end of the demon wall theories and the birth of modern supersonic aerodynamics. The race didn't stop there. With the X-1A variant, Yeager pushed the limit to Mach 2.44. Here he encountered the lethal Inertia coupling, sending the craft into a total uncontrolled tumble. At this velocity, the plane no longer followed standard aerodynamic laws. It spun on all 3 axes simultaneously like a dying top, throwing the pilot with such extreme G-forces that he shattered the inner cockpit canopy with his helmet. Falling more than 45,000 feet in less than a minute, Yeager miraculously regained control just a few thousand feet above the desert floor. This harrowing data laid the foundation for every modern fighter today, forcing engineers to completely rethink wing and fuselage design. Number 9. The McDonnell Douglas F-15 Eagle. Reaching Mach 2.5, it is the gold standard of air superiority. Its combat record? 104 victories, 0 losses. As of 2026, this record remains unbroken, making it the most effective assassin of the jet age. With a thrust-to-weight ratio greater than 1 to 1, the Eagle can accelerate while climbing vertically. It doesn't just fly, it rides its own pillar of fire. In a 1975 record-breaking climb, the Streak Eagle variant showed staggering acceleration, reaching 49,000 feet in just 77.02 seconds, roughly 10 seconds faster than a Saturn V rocket at the same altitude. This remains a testament to the raw power of its 1.5 to 1 thrust-to-weight ratio. The F-15's durability is also a legend that defies mathematical logic. In 1983, during a training exercise over the Negev desert, an Israeli F-15D collided mid-air with an A-4 Skyhawk, tearing off its entire right wing. Using elite skill, pilot Ziv Nadivi refused to eject. He slammed the throttles into full afterburner, turning the fuselage itself into a lifting body and landing safely at a terrifying 260 miles per hour. Only when the jet stopped did he realize he had flown home without a wing. McDonnell Douglas initially called it impossible until they saw the photographs. Entering 2026, the Eagle's bloodline is stronger than ever with the F-15EX Eagle II. The U.S. Air Force has moved to field hundreds of these to operate alongside the F-35. Why? Because the F-15EX is the only platform large enough and fast enough to carry heavy hypersonic attack cruise missiles, HACM, under its belly. It serves as a flying missile magazine, sprinting at Mach 2.5 to launch hypersonic weapons at high-value targets, proving that pure speed remains an irreplaceable advantage. Number 8. The General Dynamics F-111 Aardvark, a ghost designed to strike back at low altitudes. Its mission: penetrate enemy defenses at treetop level at supersonic speeds. This was the father of the world's first practical swing wing design. The variable sweep wings allowed it to take off from short runways and reach incredible speeds at high altitudes. Terrain-following radar allowed it to surf the Earth in total darkness. This system allowed the F-111 to fly automatically at just 200 feet above the ground at the speed of sound, weaving through valleys to evade enemy radar. During 1986's Operation El Dorado Canyon against Libya, the F-111 flew a record-breaking mission around Europe to deliver a lightning strike on Gaddafi's compound. During functional check flights in a clean aerodynamic configuration, some F-111 pilots reported nudging Mach 2.9. However, this was a walk on a razor's edge. The aircraft's official Mach 2.5 limit was set by the thermal endurance of its composite radome and the heat stability of the cockpit glass, which capped out at 307 degrees Fahrenheit. Beyond this, engineers feared shockwave incompatibility at the inlets, a phenomenon that could lead to catastrophic engine failure. Number 7. The Mikoyan-Gurevich Ye-152. A Soviet specter of the Cold War, the world knew it by its propaganda designation, the Ye-166, intended to strike terror into the heart of the West. In 1962, it set a world record of Mach 2.82. It was a steel-cold message to U.S. strategic planners. A new breed of invincible interceptor had arrived. Yet the truth behind the Ye-152 was a calculated gamble by Soviet intelligence. It wasn't a finished warplane. It was a shell built around a monster. At its heart sat the massive Tumansky R-15 engine. To this day, it remains the fastest single-engine jet in history, a raw testbed for next-generation weapon systems. This engine was so powerful, it swallowed air and fuel at a staggering rate, but its lifespan was brutally short. After a single high-speed dash, the engines were often discarded as the turbine blades would literally warp and melt from the heat. In reality, the Ye-152 was more of a dragster than a fighter. It could sprint for a few minutes before exhausting itself. Its radar and weapons were often just mock-ups or incomplete. Still, the Ye-152 performed its true mission perfectly. It panicked the West and fueled a massive, costly arms race. Number 6. The MiG-31 Foxhound. At Mach 2.83, this is the fastest active-duty combat aircraft in the world. Its airframe is composed of 80% nickel steel to endure the searing friction of high-speed flight. The Foxhound was designed to police the vast, lonely skies of Siberia. It featured the world's first electronically scanned array, PESA, radar, capable of locking onto targets from hundreds of miles away. Unlike standard fighters, a flight of 4 MiG-31s can link data to sweep a 560-mile-wide corridor of airspace, functioning essentially as a mini AWACS. Today, especially amidst the prolonged conflicts in Eastern Europe and the 2026 Arctic competition, it serves a strategic role. A launch platform for the Kinzhal hypersonic missile. It is a long-range assassin, maintaining its speed advantage well into the 2030s. At an altitude of 65,000 feet and speeds of Mach 2.3, the MiG-31 imparts massive initial kinetic energy to the missile. This allows the Kinzhal to reach its 1,240-mile range and Mach 10 velocity without wasting fuel on the initial climb. As of early 2026, Russia is developing the PAKDP MiG-41 project to replace it, aiming for Mach 4. But the MiG-31 remains the reigning king of speed for the Russian aerospace forces. Position 5. The North American XB-70 Valkyrie. A technical masterpiece that hit Mach 3.08. This was the fastest flying fortress ever built, a silhouette from the future. It was hauntingly beautiful, draped in white paint to reflect the thermal radiation of nuclear blasts, carrying death from the stratosphere. 6 General Electric YJ-93 engines pushed this stainless steel beast to 70,000 feet. At that height, no interceptor system could touch it. The friction heat at Mach 3 was so intense that engineers had to use stainless steel honeycomb structures because aluminum would have softened like putty. The wingtips folded down 65 degrees, allowing the Valkyrie to ride its own shockwave to create compression lift. It was a stroke of genius. The plane generated a wave of air under its belly and surfed it like a high-speed jet ski. It was a towering testament to human ambition. But fate intervened. On June 8, 1966, during a publicity photo shoot, an F-104 starfighter flying in close formation was sucked into the Valkyrie's turbulent wake. The F-104 flipped, sheared off the XB-70's twin vertical stabilizers, and exploded. The massive Valkyrie fell into a death spiral and crashed into the desert. Today, only one remains, a steel monument to an era of extreme ambition, where speed was the ultimate measure of strategic survival. Number 4. The Bell X-2 Starbuster. Its singular mission: to shatter the heat barrier. If the sound barrier was a test of pressure, the heat barrier was a test of materials. At Mach 3, air friction can literally melt an aircraft's skin. The fuselage was crafted from K-Monel copper-nickel alloy and stainless steel. These heat-shielded layers were the final barrier against total disintegration while screaming through the thick atmosphere. September 27, 1956. Dropping from the bomb bay of a B-50, Milburn Apt ignited the rocket engine. He became the first human to cross the Mach 3.2 threshold, piercing through every known artificial limit. It was the peak of glory and the moment of tragedy. The cost of knowledge is often sacrifice. Inertia coupling claimed Apt's life moments after his record run. Destabilized by the extreme speed, the aircraft began a violent, uncontrollable tumble. Though Apt managed to separate the escape capsule, the impact with the ground was too severe. In exchange, humanity gained blood-bought data on hypersonic flight. The bronze medal belongs to the ghost of the North, the MiG-25 Foxbat. For decades, the Foxbat was the ultimate nightmare for Western intelligence, possessing altitude and velocity that seemed impossible. In 1971, Israeli radar confirmed the nightmare. A Foxbat tore through the Sinai skies at Mach 3.2. Not a single air defense system of the era could reach it. Israeli F-4 Phantom pilots fired Sidewinder missiles in pursuit, but the MiG-25 simply engaged its afterburners and outran the missiles. Power came from a pair of massive Tumansky R-15 B-300 engines. These raw turbojet monsters transformed the Foxbat into the fastest combat aircraft in history, a true brute of the skies. Maintaining Mach 3.2 was a calculated technical sacrifice. At this velocity, the intake temperatures and internal pressures of the R-15 B-300 far exceeded safety parameters, causing permanent mechanical deformation of the turbine blades due to extreme thermal stress. Upon landing, the entire propulsion system of these specific Foxbats had to be scrapped, as their structural integrity could no longer be guaranteed for future sorties. The Americans were shocked to learn the Foxbat was built from heavy nickel steel instead of titanium, after pilot Viktor Belenko defected to Japan in 1976. They were even more stunned to find an electronics suite relying on vacuum tubes rather than semiconductors. They initially mocked the design, but soon realized the genius behind it. Vacuum tubes handled heat better and were completely immune to the electromagnetic pulse, EMP, of a nuclear blast. It was a rugged, muscle-bound solution to conquer a record altitude of 123,000 feet. The undisputed legend, the Lockheed SR-71 Blackbird, Mach 3.3. This remains the pinnacle of manned air-breathing propulsion, a ghost that operated far beyond the reach of any interceptor missile. Over 4,000 missiles were launched at the SR-71 during its 30 years of service, yet not a single one ever touched that mysterious black paint. If targeted by a lock-on, the pilot's defensive procedure was simple: accelerate. The Blackbird didn't hide. It simply outran every threat with pure kinetic energy. The cockpit featured windows made of heat-resistant solid quartz. The titanium airframe was built with intentional thermal expansion gaps, causing it to constantly leak fuel while on the ground. The specialized JP-7 fuel was so stable, you could throw a lit match into a bucket of it without an explosion. To ignite it, the SR-71 used a potent chemical starter called triethylborane, TEB, which produced a signature emerald green flame every time the afterburners kicked in. A nitrogen system inerted the fuel tanks to prevent heat-induced detonation. Nestled in the belly of the beast was an automated astro-inertial navigation system, capable of pinpointing its position using the stars, even in broad daylight. One of the most famous SR-71 stories: Blackbird pilots wore pressurized suits identical to astronauts, operating their machines on the ragged edge of space. Even though it is retired, as of 2026, rumors of the SR-72 Darkstar project continue to swirl. In early 2026, the SR-72, son of Blackbird, remains shrouded in secrecy at Skunk Works. While financial reports show massive investments into complex integrated systems, the SR-72 is currently categorized as a technology demonstrator rather than a mass production aircraft. The greatest hurdle remains mastering the turbine-based combined cycle (TBCC) engine to bridge the gap between conventional turbojets and hypersonic scramjets. While modern spy satellites are sophisticated, they are bound by fixed orbits. A Mach 6 aircraft can appear unexpectedly and photograph a target before the enemy can cover it up, which is why the hypersonic dream never dies. The absolute throne. The North American X-15, unrivaled and unmatched. On October 3, 1967, William J. Knight pushed this machine to Mach 6.7, nearly 7 times the speed of sound. The XLR-99 rocket engine generated 57,000 pounds of thrust, incinerating 7 tons of liquid fuel in just 80 seconds. This force was so violent, it pinned the pilot to his seat with a constant 4 Gs throughout the burn. 8 X-15 pilots were awarded astronaut wings. They flew at altitudes of 67 miles, where the atmosphere ends and the silence of the cosmos begins. Among them was Neil Armstrong, the man who would later become the first to step onto the moon. The X-15 was the ultimate crucible that forged the greatest astronauts in history. An Inconel-X alloy skin shielded the craft from the searing friction of atmospheric re-entry. To steer in the vacuum of space, it utilized hydrogen peroxide thrusters like a true spacecraft. The X-15 was the direct bridge to the Mercury, Gemini, and Apollo programs. In fact, landing data from the X-15 was instrumental in designing the space shuttle years later. The race for speed continues today with hypersonic weapons and unmanned platforms. But 2026 marks a shift. Humanity has reached the biological limits of G-force endurance. The X-15's record may stand forever as a monument to the courage of the right stuff era, a time when men dared to sit atop rockets to touch the stars. Which of these beasts impressed you the most? Do you think the X-15's record will ever be broken by another manned aircraft? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into military history. Until next time.